September, so they're about 7 months old, thereabouts right now. By commercial hog operations, I'm an idiot. I have fed these pigs for 2 months more than necessary. Most pigs die between 4 and 6 months old, depending on weight. Because of current grain prices, commercial pork has been going to slaughter at 120 pounds, right about how big these guys are right now. Normal pork only achieves its prime at 220 pounds. And that's right where I'm targeting these guys for sometime in October. So when these guys are much bigger, probably, I mean, literally about double their size. And that comes with maturity and you know, just growth. But so I think giving the animals a happy life, a long, mature life, yeah, it doesn't negate the fact that I'm going to savagely chew them to bits at some point. But it does mean that my efforts and my desire to, and my need in my own body to eat meat is not wasted. I've given them the best life that's possible. And out here, what I've done is I've taken a waste piece of ground, something that was just scrub forest. It looks like the Ardennes after, you know, the bombing in World War I, completely bomb blast. But we'll see. This will regenerate in less than a year's time and be lush again and have no significant impact for what it looks like right now. And yet I've made $3,000 off of what was an undervalued piece of land. And I've done a couple other things. I've improved the land. Out here, the Indians used to burn the forest every single year. You'll see some of these trees, some especially the large cedars, not one here within sight, have scorch marks. Literally from the early 1800s, when the Indians would torch the land each summer, and a couple islands still do this, the uninhabited ones, because that promotes the wildflowers and the berries, clears the underbrush, and allows the trees to remain strong. So I've cleared a lot of scrub underbrush and helped the forest a little bit with the trees. I've also created this vast fire break, because all that land beyond here is unmanaged and tinder dry. And I can't stand the fact that there used to be roads and it used to be maintained, and now the state won't let us do that. So if that place ever goes up on fire, it directly threatens us with very little to do. There's no way we could fight a wildfire on this island. So I have created to some degree a fire break, and I fed my animals doing that. And that's true whether you use sheep or goats or pigs as your primary rotation device, your rototillers, your land clearing devices. Because in essence, I'm a lazy farmer. I love hard work when others do it. I let the pigs do the work. I let the pigs come through here now. And so, you know, I'm a huge gambler. I've taken a gamble. I already told you how the pigs escaped and led me on a wild goose chase. I don't really have any periphery fences. In a lot of locations, you would not be able to get away with this without significant implications. But we're isolated enough. I've read the, you know, the lay of the land. The piece of property is good enough that if they do get out, I can find them, I think, I hope. They're not going to go too far, do too much damage to neighbors' property. So I can get away with a net fence like this. But even if I had a full perimeter fence, I'd still use temporary portable fencing. It means I can selectively choose where they go. Yeah?
How long will you wait before you come back to put those hogs on that spot there?
Ideally 2 years. Land becomes sick. It could be animal sick, it could become especially pig sick. You can overload a piece of ground with too much. Now I'm not worried about these guys having many worms or any, you know, diseases or anything like that. This is a really healthy way for them to be raised. But if I were to put them through too many times, you overload the soil biology with too much, and land will become pig sick especially. So it's about a 3-year rotation for live pigs on a piece of property. I only feed these guys a third of the grain, and they're still gaining weight, they're still growing fine, because they have all this. They'll root through these broken down stumps and eat the grubs and bugs, and they'll dig for roots and tubers. and they'll be fine with that, and they'll thrive. They look really healthy. I mean, you can kind of tell when the pigs aren't doing well, and then you just give them a little bit more feed or pay attention to them. I've had a couple go lame. I've had a couple with snotty noses that look sick. You just kind of, the number one thing to do with any livestock you have is watch them every day. I spend 15, 20 minutes up here with the pigs. Not everybody can do that, but maybe the people who can't afford that extra little bit of time, even if I'm rushing or busy, maybe 5 minutes, but I still make sure that I look over all my animals every single day. Because then, whenever anything's wrong, it immediately stands out. And you say, hey, wait a minute, I got to deal with that. I can't leave that. They tell you volumes, they speak volumes about their condition. True animal husbandry, and not to use that word sexistly, but caretakers of livestock, people who raise, an animal husband or animal husbandry is the practice of raising, nurturing, and benefiting the livestock under your care. Now, anybody can raise animals, but not many people can be animal husbands, to practice animal husbandry as it should be. Just because you can raise pigs doesn't mean you necessarily have the right mentality to raise pigs or cattle or sheep or chickens. You just have to have you can learn it. I learned it to some extent, but I also just have a natural feel and affinity for it. I enjoy working with the animals, maybe not always. If I'd been up here without you guys, and thanks for all your help, by the way, I would not have enjoyed chasing after them. It might have gone a little smoother, it might not have. I mean, I could have been out here for hours hunting down pigs. So, you know, you just have to constantly want to get back and do it and enjoy working with them. And I love pigs. I find them really rewarding and really hilarious. They're just like dogs in their affection and their behavior and how they are. They can be annoying, and when they get bigger, they can get a little bit, you know, a little bit worrisome just because their size. I had one almost break my leg because he came up to be scratched and he leaned into me. But it wasn't his fault. He just wanted to be my buddy for that time. And I wasn't expecting him to drop all his weight on me at 220 pounds. The great thing about pigs, I think, is, you know, they're cute as piglets. Boy, I don't know anyone who can resist a piglet. They are just adorable. When you pick them up, they shriek like the devil, but as long as they're left to snork around and play, they're a riot. But boy, by the time they're 220, 250 pounds, you're ready to get rid of them. They're not like sheep. These things, oh, you know, we got to keep, oh, that one's just so beautiful, we got to keep that one. That would be good breeding stock, or something like that. Or even my Highland heifer up there. You know, I'd be hard pressed to let her go. But, God, pigs, you know, 220, 230, 250 pounds, I'm ready to see the back end of them. I try and go as all natural on worming the pigs as possible. I give them a couple of doses of commercial wormer right when we first get them, just to make sure that I'm not infesting the land with any parasites from off the farm, or at least controlling it. And then garlic is an amazingly powerful wormer. And so I give them a lot of garlic powder that a friend of mine who's an organic pig raiser in Vermont says works wonder. I also feed them diatomaceous earth over their dry grain, which is another good natural wormer. And I haven't, raising them this way, haven't had any problems with worm load in them at all.
So it's like preventative.
Preventative, basically, yeah. And you know, the garlic and the diatomaceous earth don't hurt them in any way anyway, so just pouring it in cost me a couple dollars over the course of the year, but it's worth it. The other thing we fight out here is something called liver fluke, which is carried by snails. And the life cycle is it lives in the snail, the cattle or animal eats it when they eat the grass, and then it goes through and it infests their liver and ruins the liver. Last year's pigs had no liver fluke in them, and I didn't worm them for liver fluke. So that meant, you know, I've kept them up here where it's dry. I've paid attention to the conditions. I try and keep my cattle and the sheep out of the land that are wet and marshy, where the sort of snails and history of liver fluke have kind of come about. I try not to let my animals graze the ground during the wet season right to the bottom where they would be ingesting those snails and things that pick up the parasites and the liver flu. So it's not just about you know, using medicines. I think that's the problem with conventional agriculture, and to some degree the crossover between organic and conventional is people are failing to observe the whole picture. They're failing to watch their animals. They're failing to watch their land to know, you know, I can tell you the 3 spots where I would never raise animals on this entire property because somebody else had tried it before and failed. And that to me is a clear sign I'm never putting livestock there, either liver flu or there's a wet spot down there where somebody tried to raise pigs years and years ago and they just died. Okay, whatever's there, I don't want to find out. I can avoid that. And so it's just kind of being in tune, and that's, you know, that's when you get, that's the other reason, another great reason for doing things temporarily at first, is to learn things about the piece of property you have under your care. To know where's a good spot. Where, oh wow, man, those pigs we had tasted great. I put them in the woods last year. We got to find another piece that's like that. Or wow, I moved those cattle onto that paddock and they just bloomed. They really thrived on that. Let's make sure we incorporate that all the time in our rotation. So it's really about being an observer, about watching and paying attention to things when you have livestock. And not just what conventional farmers and a lot of even organic farmers do. They just, okay, there's a remedy for that, let's just apply it. And people, I'm not one to let my animals suffer. I studied to be a veterinarian, never quite made it. The last thing I want to do is see an animal suffer. I will do everything I can to prevent it up to that stop loss point where it's going to cost me more than the animal's worth, in which case it just gets butchered and goes. But I'm also a cheapskate at heart. I don't want to spend any money that I don't have to for something that's not necessary. And that, I think, is, people need to be more like that. People need to think through things, research, read through any possible thing and find the broad spectrum of what can be done before you have to spend a dime. Too often our society just wants to go for that quick fix.
Neil, could you talk a little bit about how much garlic and diatomaceous earth are we talking about when you dose these guys?
You cannot give an animal too much diatomaceous earth. There is no hazard point to it. They can absorb. I generally will pick a week where I'm going to be focused and say, okay, every day this week I'm going to put in a cup of diatomaceous earth over their feed. And sometimes I go more, sometimes less.
So she's eyeballing.
It's just kind of eyeballing with how much feed I'm giving them and what I'm feeding them. Garlic, same thing. I take the Costco dried garlic powder thing and I split that into 3 doses and pour a third into a batch and mix it in and just call that good. I'm sure there's recommended doses and there's now some garlic, specific garlic wormers out there on the market that I've considered trying if it weren't for the fact that they all come from the East Coast and the shipping would be expensive. And I don't believe in shipping stuff that far. If there was a local source, I'd use it. So there might be some recommendations for that. You just, and I'm sure if I were really to be pressed, I'd do the research on the internet and it's probably right there.
Another question on that, on your processing, are you doing the processing of these guys?
I last year did 2 pigs myself, butchered them on the farm, scalded, scraped them, video to come out soon, and went right through curing and hanging and full butchering. That was just for the ones I kept. It's illegal to do that for any meat that you sell. The rest I had a custom butcher from the mainland do. This year I'm just going to do one of our own pigs, and we sold the rest. And that's the other thing. This is, I know that CSA, community supported agriculture, meat models are just now coming online. People have finally gotten their head around it. It's a very difficult one. It's not the same as vegetables or market gardening where people pay you to raise a crop, you give them the vegetable box each week, and they get something, their return on that's much quicker. With animals, it can be a year to 2 to 3 years for meat. But most of these animals I have all pre-sold, and quite a few of them I have accepted down payments on. And I'm probably the first person I know, and I have a very small network, that has done that, where basically the people said, okay, I will pay you to raise this animal for me, and giving me the money up front, which means not that I can spend it, I have to put that in the bank and trust the FDIC isn't going to steal it away when all the banks collapse here soon, but that I think I'm going to start taking the down payments in gold and keep it under the mattress from now on. But
How many acres does the 2 to 3 year rotation take going through the woods?
this is about 2 acres, I think, from stem to stern.
Yeah. And that's enough for the full rotation?
And that's enough. I've brought them as far back as I'm going to go, and then now we're working them back to the road, back to where they'll leave the farm. I've had them at my house when they were piglets in the garden for a while. And I try and work it so that they go from sun to shade in the hottest part of the summer and back, wherever I put them. And I'm very conscious of that. Pigs, you know, a lot of people say pigs love mud baths and love the mud thing. They don't need that. They just need to be cool.
Yeah.
They'll love to make a mess and make a big mud puddle and all the rest of it, but by and large, they just want the cool shade.